I had started my day like any other. It was early March, and the sun hadn't fully risen yet, leaving the savannah's edge in pale light. I was walking along the perimeter of the small wildlife reserve, where I sometimes volunteered, mostly checking fences and paths. My dog Raju trotted ahead of me, his ears perked and tail high. He's an older shepherd mix, not huge, but sharp, with an instinct I've always trusted. We hadn't gone far when he suddenly stopped and sniffed the air, then barked sharply. Not his usual playful bark. This one had urgency. I called his name, Raju. What is it? He turned briefly, then darted a few steps forward, looking back at me again. I noticed the way he was focused, his body stiff, eyes locked on something in the distance. Instinctively, I followed him off the main path, through the scrub, and over a low ridge. I didn't know what he had sensed yet, but I trusted him. He had never led me wrong. The quiet of the morning felt heavier. Birds were unusually silent. As we approached a small clearing near the edge of the riverbed, I saw it. Trampled grass and disturbed earth. Raju stopped again and sniffed the ground, then barked, low and urgent. His hackles were up. At first I couldn't tell what had caused it. But then I heard a faint rumbling groan. It wasn't a normal sound. It was deep, drawn out, almost like someone in pain. Raju barked again and turned to face me, then back to the clearing, as if saying, "You need to come now." I cautiously stepped forward. That's when I saw her. A young female elephant was partially stuck in the mud along the riverbank. One of her front legs was trapped in a depression, twisted awkwardly, and she was struggling to pull herself free. I froze. Elephants can be dangerous when panicked or in pain, but she wasn't charging, just straining, exhausted and frightened. Raju stayed close to me, his tail stiff but his demeanor calm, like he knew the situation needed focus, not fear. I noticed movement nearby, her calf, barely a year old, standing at the edge of the water. The young elephant trumpeted softly, calling to its mother. It didn't come closer, but it stayed within sight, moving nervously. Raju barked again, short and firm, not threatening. It felt like he was telling me, "We need to act before she tires completely." I took a deep breath. I had to help, and Raju seemed to know that, too. I moved closer, keeping my voice low. "Easy, girl, we're not going to hurt you." She lifted her trunk briefly, breathing heavily. Mud coated one side of her body, and the ground around her was slippery. I realized that if she struggled too much, she could sink further. I looked at the calf again. It was anxious but not panicking. They were both vulnerable. Raju circled the mother elephant slowly, sniffing and then returning to me, his gaze urging patience. I had no rope long enough to pull her out on my own, but I had a few tools in my bag. A stout branch, a small winch, and some rope. We could try carefully. I pulled out my radio and contacted the reserve office. Elephant trapped near riverbank, female injured leg. Need a team and vehicle ASAP. I said, giving exact coordinates. While waiting, I stayed low and calm, speaking softly to her. Raju remained between me and the elephant, keeping watch, but never acting aggressive. She tried to lift her leg a few times, groaning each time. I knew we were on a timer. The longer she struggled alone, the more exhausted she would become. The team arrived about 45 minutes later. 2 other volunteers, a vet, and a ranger with a jeep and equipment. They assessed the situation quickly. We needed to pull her without causing injury. The vet suggested a mild sedative to calm her, just enough to prevent panic. I stayed back as the team prepared, while Raju ran small circles, occasionally sniffing the mother elephant, making sure she was aware we weren't a threat. It struck me then, if Raju hadn't led me here, she might have been stuck until nightfall, or worse. We managed to loop a long rope around her torso, carefully avoiding her legs and trunk. Raju didn't leave her side once. When she tried to push against the ground, he barked sharply, almost warning her to wait. It was remarkable to watch. He knew to be gentle, alert, and calm. The vet gave a soft signal, and the pulling began slowly. She strained against the rope at first, then began to relax slightly, letting the winch take some of her weight. We pulled steadily, inch by inch. Mud slipped under her feet, and she let out low, frustrated trumpets. Raju barked once, running forward and nudging her trunk gently, as if to encourage her to stay balanced. I had never seen a dog act with such apparent intelligence and timing. It wasn't instinct alone, it was understanding, a sense of urgency and care. Halfway through, she slipped again slightly, and the rope tightened uncomfortably. We paused. The vet instructed us to adjust her footing and clear some of the mud around her legs. Raju stayed close, sniffing the ground, then returned to her side. When I moved forward to help, he barked once, a short warning. He positioned himself between me and her legs, and it was clear he was saying, "Careful." Once we made adjustments, the pulling resumed. Finally, after nearly 20 minutes, she was close to solid ground. Her calf trumpeted loudly, and the mother responded with a weak but hopeful call. Raju barked and ran small circles near the calf, making sure it stayed safe and calm. The team gave a coordinated pull, and slowly she lifted herself out of the mud completely. She stood unsteadily for a moment, shaking off some of the mud, then lowered her head to the calf, who rushed forward. Once she was fully on solid ground, the vet examined her. Her leg had some bruising and minor cuts, but no fractures. She was exhausted, but otherwise okay. Raju stayed close to the mother elephant, sniffing her gently and then nudging the calf. It was clear he was making sure they were both safe. I knelt next to him. "Good boy, Raju. You stayed with her the whole time. You saved them both." He wagged his tail briefly and barked softly, as if acknowledging my praise. After another 10 minutes, she began walking slowly with her calf beside her. Raju stood and watched them, then trotted alongside me. I wanted to follow them, to make sure they were okay, but they quickly moved back toward the deeper part of the reserve. The mother elephant looked back once, her trunk raised slightly, almost like a gesture of thanks. Raju barked once, short and cheerful, then turned to walk beside me. I drove home later that morning, exhausted but in awe. I kept thinking about Raju, the way he had led me, stayed calm, and seemed to understand exactly what needed to happen. Without him, I might have wandered in the wrong direction or hesitated too long. The elephants might have struggled until they were too tired to move. Sometimes heroes don't wear uniforms. Sometimes they have 4 legs, fur, and eyes that see more than we do. I know this, without Raju's intelligence, courage, and timing, that mother elephant and her calf might not have survived the morning. Even now, thinking back, I can see him in my mind standing alert, barking at the right moments, guiding us both safely through one of the most tense and fragile situations I've ever witnessed.